powerful people to this 43 episode yet of the Real Agile podcast with your host, Coach AF. Yes, I know my American client, they love it. They baptized me for this, and AF could mean a lot of things. And today I am joined by an amazing person that I met online because we are liking each other, meaningful posting sometimes. And so I'm glad to welcome you, Isabelle Gerard, because we're going
Thank
to talk
you.
about, yeah, what is agile leadership and so much more. We have to talk this Friday, October 28th. So tell me, who are you and what do you propose in this beautiful world?
Yay. Oh, well, first of all, just to tell you that I'm speaking just for myself, not the company I work with. So it's just my perspective as a agile coach. But I also have a blog on the side and I share my thoughts around agility and agile leadership. This is my own thinking around everything that I read about. So my name is Isabelle. I live in France. I'm a mother of two kids, and I work as an agile lead in a company. And I'm very passionate about helping people try to make their work life better.
The work life better and maybe wiser too,
Wiser if we can, yes,
if we
but
can.
it's not
Oh, that's
within my
interesting.
control.
Okay, so I'm really happy that you accept our invitation to spread some words about this because if you're passionate, we are also here at the Agile Lounge and myself very passionate about everything for trend. We say transforming still because, but we are, we are even uncovering new ways, and we finally kind of see that evolution of what we do and who we are combined together. It's more meaningful now as a professional development for an individual, but also we could apply it to organizations. So today, uh, so as we ask ourselves what's next, because it's about
Mhm.
what
Yeah.
after, what is the
Mhm.
meta agile leadership, because meta in Greek is not a metaverse, it's
Mm.
the after of something, the better and mess of something. So what is it for you, Isabelle? First, agile leadership, and what do you see is next? What do we need the next?
Yeah, that's not so easy to answer that question because when I do some research about what agile coaching is, you see many different personality traits. I think most of it is about soft skills. When we call soft skills, it's about active listening. Um, we see a lot of things about creating psychological safety. For the people who don't know about what psychological safety is, it's about creating a safe space, non-judgmental space for people, so that the teams can really put their ideas and be very creative, not feeling judged and not feeling blamed or feeling hurt if they fail. So it's really creating an environment where we can see new ideas emerge. And this is what we are trying to seek with agility, is that we are in front of complex problems and we are trying to find out new solutions. So emergent solutions. And you answer to these problems with emergent solutions, with creativity, with new ideas that were not thought before. So you need people to bring people into this safe environment so they are really they can really open their mind and come up with a lot of solutions and new ideas that then you can test because we are also very pragmatic. We are trying to seek common sense. We are trying to experiment. So the agile leader also fosters that for the team, try to put them into a context um, where the team can experiment and they dare to fail and they dare to learn from their failures. That would be really what agile leadership is for me.
It's for you right now, and there's two
Exactly.
things that kind of trigger me as you talk about
Hmm.
a way of inclusivity, and it's like safe space
Hmm.
towards what Harrison Owen like kind of created of the open space, inspired with the Scrum way, the system, this organizational system that
Hmm.
ask leadership to invite. all the stakeholders into an
Mhm.
open space, and they kind of study the fact that if you make it too much safe, you talk about psychological safety. So, because I'd like to do the devil advocates a little bit, because in my
Okay.
experience, empirically, I've seen when we are putting the rule of the game into a safe space, it was less creative in terms of emergent solution or uncovering new
Mhm.
ways than if it was a true open space where the rule are very simple: is who's coming is the right person.
Mhm.
It's an invitation, by the way. So you have to be ready to be triggered and to exchange your
Okay.
ideas.
Yeah.
And when it start is the right time.
Mhm.
And what is the outcome? It the thing to test, as you mentioned
Mm.
also.
Yeah.
But there is no other rules of respect or courage, or it's just like, let's
Mm.
brainstorm together in that open space and let's confront each other. So if you're
Yeah.
not ready to be triggered or to be maybe offended, that's a problem, because in psychology it's the ego, the
Mm.
intuition, the ego, and so how do we balance that kind of
Mm.
the pragmatic reasoning of let's solve that problem or that complexity.
Mm.
Let's do it with the art, with that inclusivity. I agree with that psychological safety.
Mhm.
And but could we let go of the ego? Because maybe what I'm going to say to you trigger you as Isabelle, but it's nothing to do with the idea of, let's say, sizing and estimation, or
Mm.
having a more meaningful matrix for whatever the subject could be and the open space. So it should be. So what do you think? What's your thought on it? And could you explain me? Maybe I'm wrong, and I'm glad if you
No,
tell me
no.
I'm wrong about the psychological safety,
Mm.
creating safe space to include everyone.
Mm.
But I prefer the way of Mizik and Owen when they say, no, 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 you invite people, they don't show up,
Mm.
don't force them, and just do the conversation with those who want. If they want, it's because
Mm.
they are passionate about it, and they should be able to take any
Yeah.
adversity. So, how do we?
Well, so when we talk about psychological safety, something that is important for me to stress is that I am not necessarily saying that everyone needs to agree with everyone.
Uh,
So it's more about creating the space where everyone is listening and try to understand each other rather than judging each other. So I think this maybe clarifies a bit more where you were heading to.
yeah.
So I don't really like to say psychological safety anymore. It's more like create a space, an inclusive space. So it's really about inclusion and how do we invite people to speak up.
Okay.
But I like your point to say that the people who are in the room are the right people.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. And if we come to the ego part, I think this is where I see beyond the agile leadership traits that I'm talking about. So, of course, um, agile leadership for me is someone who is able to remove his ego to lead from this place and to serve. So there is also this aspect that I didn't talk about earlier. It's about serving others and serving the team. And if you want to serve others, you need to have done this self development, this
Mhm.
self awareness work before.
And having
Because
this
if you
empathy,
didn't,
we
yeah,
need empathy as leader.
exactly.
And,
So empathy is required when you want to listen to people, when you want to include people. So when we talk about inclusivity, it's anything. I'm also thinking about introverts, extroverts. I'm talking about neuroatypical people. I know quite something about that. It's any age. And this is funny because I had questions about colleagues about that. What about people who are older and there are younger people in the team? How do we cope with that? And you just listen
Mhm.
to what they have to say
Yeah,
because older
simply.
people might come up with a lot of experience, but maybe young people as well, because they just have a different perspective. And all of this thing all together creates these new ideas and the emerging solutions that we are looking to.
Because yes, I agree, but I tend to see the world of work when we try to solve any complexity or any problem and to make it better for the better experience most of the time. If we talk about business, leadership and
mm,
business, you don't have a business if you don't have client or user
mm,
of your product. So it's all about them first. And then after
mhm,
it's about the worker, those who do realize this,
mm,
make it
yeah,
happen. And for me, and then at some point, like I used to do a lot of assessment before going into a facilitation, more than just the coaching
mm,
or training, like really
yeah,
facilitation. But more often, I realized that let's say they will say like we need to gather 50 people with their different skills and talent to
mm,
discuss in that one day kind of open space. So of course I don't have time, and probably it's the same for you as consultant and leader, agile, qualificative or not. For me, it's not necessarily the interest here for now, for my example. But in my experience, what I've seen is the leader who want to hire us, we could do an assessment with them asking like, okay, so you need your architect for this and all about these people. So of course all that you
mm,
mentioned, I was tendency of doing a grid for me just to put myself in the mindset of that servant leader, of that
mm,
facilitator, to make sure that I will adapt my way of bringing them together according
mm,
to, is it multi-generation, is it like but I do it just to prepare myself. But when I'm on stage with them,
mm,
I don't want to make them feel they are gender different or they are different, because I will aim to the goal
mm,
of, because inclusivity for me should be about the idea about what is the complex thing that we'd like
mm,
to solve together.
yeah,
and and
mm,
and then that's why I'm always like, okay, so should I concentrate of having what they have to say about it, what they have to propose about it, and less about, oh, ease. Of course, if someone starts saying like, oh, I've been working in this department for 32 years and blah blah blah, and he's
mm,
really old,
yeah,
and so now we have to, as facilitator, we have just to make sure that it's the ego thing, right? Because you will say like, oh, but no, it's not about
mm,
that. So
yes,
we have to bring them to the idea. What is the solution we
yeah,
aim to find?
yeah,
And not about, so yeah, so it's kind of
mm,
complex sometimes, especially in a
yes,
face-to-face environment when we have to prepare as coaches, but
mm,
then again, it will go with the leadership, with the
mm,
leader of this team. Or
yeah.
what do you say to that? It's like
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is whenever I prepare a facilitation workshop, for example, what I'm doing is that I'm more focusing on what success looks like. What do we want to get from this?
mhm,
And based on that, asking maybe a few questions about the team, but I prefer to go with the flow and to experiment as I'm doing. So there is the preparation on the outcome. What do we want to achieve? And I work from the purpose, in fact. So
mhm,
why are we here for today? What are we trying to achieve? And then I'm trying, so of course, I try to identify which tool are the most relevant, like liberating structure, anything that I can find, because I'm very curious, I'm very passionate about finding new tools all the time. Um, so I'm trying to find things that are most relevant, but I also allow myself as a facilitator to change as I go and to maybe change the session. At some
mhm.
point in time, I had planned this tool. Maybe this is, in fact, given of the outcome so far, there is something else that will be more relevant for the team. So it's also as a coach or leader for this kind of teams, but as a facilitator in this case, to step back and say, okay, maybe what I had thought would be good for this session is not so relevant anymore. And take this as an experiment and a learning and switch to something else during the session. But again, this requires some self-awareness and the
Yeah,
ability as a facilitator to
yeah, because
recognize that maybe what you had planned was not so perfect and that you need to switch to something else.
yeah,
And
and I like,
also trust your instinct. And I know that you like intuition as well.
first I like it because you're applying two of the values right now
Yeah.
of what help us create these patterns. It's responding to change over following a plan. So let's say that those who hire us already, we have to solve these problem with the ATM at the bank,
Mm,
whatever. And so let's gather those people to make a better user experience at the ATM with both the CRM and stuff. And So that are the outcome they wish because the customer feedback. So and so you might have a plan with your experience and stuff and how we're
Mm.
gonna do this, but you don't know those people yet. Maybe you know, maybe you don't know. But in my case, as an external consultant, more of the time, I know a couple of key player or the C-level people who ask me to help them. But
Mm.
and it depends because and sometimes it's a sense of urgency. Let's solve that impediment and let's please come and help our scrum master, our coaches to do this with create this open space and stuff. But so the first hour is where there maybe if I did propose a kind of an agenda to go through the day, I will do an agreement with my class. I will say that that's the proposition according to what I understand from your leadership and your customer feedback. But what about you guys? Could you take some post-it and tell me
Mm.
at the end of today what will be the thing you need answer on? So I'm already changing the game at
Mm.
the first 20 minutes of my workshop. It's one of my techniques I have to do. An agreement-based thing where they
Yes.
will tell me what is the outcome and I will help them. Okay, I remember this morning, Isabelle, you tell us this. Are we
Mm.
talking about it now? It's the floor is yours. So you know,
Mm.
and what is the next? Because if it's what next, is that it? Yeah. So for you, it's been like it's not sufficient enough. Of how do you describe that we need as maybe an agile community? What we teach right now and agile
Mm.
leadership certification.
Mm.
I got one, and I don't know for you, but is it something that we
Mm.
need to improve by serving our people? And so?
So I don't know if we need it right now, but I'm also very keen to explore new things and to look at the future. What could the future look like? So it's like some kind of perspective and maybe strategic thinking of what could be next. Um, so agility, it's like 20 years old now, and we see there are ish. There are a lot of battles with the frameworks and things like that. So my idea is more the thinking I have right now is more how to put more simplicity around agility.
Ah,
Um, how can we simplify it and how can we embody it and how can we lead it? And I went into, so when I was doing my Agile coach certification, the instructor told us about two books. The first one from Frédéric Laloux called Reinventing Organizations, where he has studied and described different types of organization and the flavors of it. And there is something, so agile teams are usually described by Frédéric Laloux as the green company, and beyond green, there is a teal. And we had the example of Patagonia. Patagonia, if I remember correctly, I think is described as a teal organization. If not, there is another one that is Dutch, and I forgot the name because it's not very pronounceable for a French lady. But it's a it's an organization that works as a cycle. So there is someone as the lead, like a CEO, and they have cycles of nurses, and these nurses are self-organized, and this cycle of nurses take care of their own clients, and they self-organize themselves. They take more time to visit the people than any other organization, and they have coaches to help each cycle. So
ah,
this only organization, what they have is one CEO, coaches, and the nurses. And I find this is very interesting. And this is a profit organization. So I
the
find this
healthcare
kind of model is
organization.
very fascinating.
It's the one in Netherlands you're talking about, like
Yeah, the Netherlands. Yeah,
so it's healthcare organization but
yeah,
profitable. Yeah,
yes,
okay, why not? Yeah,
yeah. So
and,
that's very interesting to see these kind of things. And then we also looked at the spiral, what is called the spiral dynamics, and Frédéric Laloux looked at that initially. So he got inspired from this spiral dynamics work. And the spiral dynamics is a study of the population and the awareness or the maturity of people across the ages and see how humanness evolves. And
Yeah.
it goes as a spiral, in fact, and we see this green again. And green is more like so all the companies, most of the companies and the states right now are where in a state where they call it orange, and orange is more like hierarchies,
Drive
structures,
strategic
command
action.
and control, this kind of things. And
Yeah.
agile leadership is more in the green again, and green is more like collaborative, things like that. And in
And
the
they
spiral
say,
dynamics, there is something beyond as well.
but the spiral dynamic things, I heard a little bit about it before because
Mhm.
of the work of Claire Graves.
Graves.
Um, and because I study in physics and astrophysics, and of course the spiral thing. By the way, my colleague in quantum and us in cosmology, we see the same thing.
Mm.
Micro and macro, it's always a spiral. And even some kind of our colleagues in the University of Arizona, with back in the day, they still collaborate. Let's be frank, they still collaborate with a
Mm.
Russian university in St. Petersburg, and they came to the conclusion that even our solar system is not like circulating. It's circular, yes, but it's more spiraling.
Mm.
And far away you are in a spiral, far away you are to this dynamic of human bound, because probably when I saw the so it's also the evolution of the mindset from spiritism all the way to a more evolutionary. So it's they propose evolution over transformation in a
Mm.
sense.
Yeah.
You agree? And this dynamic of,
I
because
think I like the idea of evolution rather than transformation, but
because
it's vocabulary, in fact. What
when I
do we
was,
put behind the words transformation and
yeah,
evolution?
but because when I heard that you want to bring that subject to the table of the day, Real Agile, so of course I went back to my book that I read before of Ken Wilber and stuff, and
Mm.
really,
Yeah.
in the book, that's what they say. They talk about it's an evolutionary, individual, professional
Mm.
development,
Yeah.
organizational, and they aim to create a system, not a framework. And I'd like to remind my jogger out there again that Scrum, my passion about Scrum that I'm doing for 23
Mhm.
years this November, it's a system that help you to enable frameworks.
Mm.
So because of the subtension that we have in the spiral dynamic, subtension, it's all the interrelation of course, it's from the atom with the other
Mm.
element, but we could apply it to people interaction. So anyway, I liked it because, and so if reinventing organization from Lalou is
Mm.
inspired by the work of these kind of
Yes, exactly.
scientific that
Ken
create,
Wilberg and Claire Graves. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
among other things. So, and especially we were talking about the ego, and if I'm correct, the
Mm.
ego could, the term they coined Wilder was power gods. Could you imagine that?
Yeah. Mm.
And how
Yeah,
do
I'm
you
not at that level yet.
you
So
what?
I think I'm not at that level yet. So I think it's very difficult to when you try to understand what when you are a certain level, to try to understand what are the levels beyond.
Yeah,
But what they all say is that we during our lives we go through all the first levels until we reach one. And sometimes we can even go backwards depending on the environments that we are
yep,
in. So, for example, I could be green, maybe a bit yellow. And because the environment I am in is more orange, that maybe I can go back to orange. So, my thoughts process is more like how can I bring people to green and then to yellow. So this is why I wanted to discuss about what's next, because I
yeah.
think there is also something after, and some things are not even uncovered yet. And I
But it's
think
a way.
because we are very keen to learn all the time, it's also important to project a bit further.
But so that, I think that's the core thing. If we talk about a spiral is something that move in all direction. By the way, it's not linear.
Mm,
It's all direction,
mm,
and there's different kind of pace and space in between that spiral. So this is the amazing thing, and this is a constant in our universe. That people forget about it. Like in your skin, on your cheek, you
Mm.
have spirals everywhere. If you look at a plant and the flower, there are spirals everywhere. So it's always like this kind of powerful type of. I don't want to go too much agile esoteric today, but for me, like when you, I'm connecting to that, and everything could be connected at some point. And so that's why, like, when they categorize things, is to help us because human being, we love having a good story with an
Yeah.
introduction, and so it's developed, and then we like to tell story, and we love to read stories. That's why
Yeah.
movie are so like everything that a play at theater and stuff. So I think, and even times sometimes I had a lunch yesterday with the C-level people, and they were saying like, no, we need to tell them that story
Mm. Yeah.
to propose this evolution we want to do. So it's always about like, and what is your audience? Do we pay attention to the audience? I think you
Yeah.
mentioned it a little bit earlier. So that's and simplicity. So let me ask you, when you say like agile after 20 some years, now it's entering in this, it should be entering in the phase of the business agility with my equation of conscious leadership. But it's only few of us who seems
Mm.
to work in that kind of direction. And there's right now what I call the split in my Agile Wars series, where the engineer
Mm.
to go back into the more meaningful, pragmatic, agile of software development. Because let's we forget that in 2001 it was not the agile revolution; it was the agile consortium asking the lean people to put
Mm.
customer integration in the equation,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
they came up with those 4 values and 12 principles to say to marketing and sales, stop it, let's work together. That's
Yeah.
what's the only thing.
Mm.
Of course, like the better of these guys creates like, no,
Yeah.
it should not be just for software and IT. So, but
Mm.
still today, I will say, like, even if it's 21 years old, this
Mm.
manifesto for software development, the next thing, the evolution of things, the uncovering new ways, it's not
Mm.
static. And so
No.
that's why my mentor and some 4 others co-signatory are out of this
Mm.
movement. They don't believe in agile, the A word.
Yeah.
They prefer to create something more meaningful, like open leadership network, intuitive
Mm. Yeah.
leadership association, inviting agility. So that's because they say like, no, people they just want to do the safe thing, and it's called safe for you. Be
Oh my
safe.
God.
So, but
Don't
this is
trigger me on that.
the engineer. This is the engineer counter revolution.
Yeah.
Because Dean Wintingwell, that I salute, I met him in San Diego once. He's a great guy. Like the ego, the person is great, but he preferred to tell a story with a train, a
Mm.
train that
Yeah.
goes in some direction
Yeah.
with command and control, and then hold your thought, because discipline agile, it's even worse
Yes.
in
Yeah.
terms of
And
the
this
story
is,
of the workflow.
yeah, I think I'm with you with it because even for myself, I can barely say agile anymore because people are using agile as a buzzword all the time. When they want to say flexible, it's agile. So agile, we are agile, we are agile, we are agile. No, in
Until
fact.
it's time to do agile stuff. To do it, like, okay, so you're agile,
Yeah,
so tell me, well, what do you do
yeah,
to be agile? What do you do to
yeah,
invite the people to create
exactly.
those environment, to be creative, innovative, and changing the plan? Do you have a change request? Oh, me, when they say we are agile and they present
Mm,
me, this is my
yeah,
program manager.
mm, yeah.
I thought you were agile developing product and experience for your client.
But
What
this
is that?
is, yeah. This is the challenge because most of the organization who wants to move into agile ways of working, including business agility, they are operating from an orange model like command and control.
Yeah.
So it requires a lot of letting go to move to the next level that is the greenish one. And this is why agile leadership should tend to bring people, to bring leaders towards this greenish thought and even beyond. Because if we want to evolve, if we want to go even further, one of the negative aspects of the green part, for example, is that because it's a lot about the community, people interpret it as we are seeking consensus. But the
Mm-hmm.
thing is, you can end up in analysis paralysis. So you need to move forward to break this paralysis, and you need to go a bit beyond. It's not always the case, but this is one of the cons that you can see in the green zone.
And the green zone, and maybe I know for my listener who do jogging, I'm going to do something that you don't like, but it's still be on Rumble. It's live on Rumble. Just oh, I have it in French. Why is that? Spiral dynamics. No, it's in English. Okay,
Mhm.
okay, perfect. Because I was surprised with the beige. I thought it was in French.
The beige.
The beige.
Mhm.
Well, let's just quickly to for some
Want to
audience
share?
to yeah, I want to share if I could. Sorry about that. Um, okay, this is Spiral Dynamic. The Wikipedia page, though, I know I will have some critics in the comment below. I don't like. So let's see it. Is it big enough, or maybe what I
I
can
have a
do?
pyramid if you want. Yeah.
Okay, so this is what we Isabelle and I were talking when we talk about orange and green. Let me go to the page now. So yes, and I don't remember the letters though. That goes Graves code. Ah, yeah,
The
from
letters were Graves code,
yeah, and
but they have put the name of colors, so they are using a color code.
yeah,
So the first one is beige indeed, and it's survival instinct. Then you have purple, I think it's a
yeah,
purple,
purple.
tribe and family. Then
They
you
call
have
it
the red one.
here. I love it because from an esoteric perspective, they are very clever because they call it kin
Mm,
spirits in
yeah.
Flemish. It's the desire, obey desire to mystical spirit and stuff, and that's an
Mm,
important way of evolution. And when we look back to our
yes.
human history, and
Yeah.
there's unfortunately right now we are going into the age of imposition of agile, and I think there's a lot
Mhm.
of purple people there, and
Purple or orange. So the thing as well with the spiral is that you always start with a maturity at an individual level, then you
mhm,
move to community level, and then you switch back to individual, then community, then individual, then community. And this is how the spiral goes. So survival and instinct is really focused on yourself as an individual. Tribe and family, you start to have some community levels. Then power and politics, then it goes back to individual levels.
yeah,
And every time you switch to another layer of the spiral, it means that all the individuals and the community experimenting this level have reached a point where they cannot where they have to evolve to something else. So they have reached a limit and they need to switch to something else that is the next level. And I think this is why it's so interesting to look at the spiral dynamics, because
yeah,
if you want to think strategically and think really ahead, especially because the work is changing so fast that you need to be able to anticipate on what can happen next. It doesn't
yeah.
mean that it will, we don't know. There is no certainty. But if it follows this spiral, and the research, there are enough people in yellow and in turquoise yet to know that these are the two next levels.
But then again, when we talk about next, and not everybody will race at the same pace.
No,
Should
no.
should the people maybe in the yellow help the purple and the orange? Like, is it the dynamic as
Yeah,
well? I think it
yeah.
describes it. It's like
This is the idea, but some people will not be wired to even reach a certain level. So the theory also tells that when we were born, we start with survival, and we go from one level to another of the spiral up to the adulthood, and then it really depends on us then to, and also depending on the context, the culture, the environment we are in, if we can move forward or not. So, for example, if I live in France or in the US, I think we are mainly driven by orange states and companies. So, people who are reaching green, yellow, turquoise level are people who are really working on themselves.
ah, so it's again individual professional development
Mm,
meeting the organization needs of
yes.
evolution.
Exactly.
And so
Yeah.
that's why, like the other people in
And this is,
industrial
yeah.
will do a lot of other
Mm,
matrix assessment. Actually, I just want to share something very quick again for the video listener, because your color system and but not your, I mean, the color system of the
mm,
spiral dynamic was reprised by the conscious capitalist movement
mm.
to bring the conscious leadership with Richard Barrett. And
Ah,
interestingly
okay.
enough, this gentleman was
Mhm,
actually at some point in his career the head of the World Bank,
mhm,
and he had a kind of a illuminant, like, oh, I've got a hallelujah, and I think we should put people first. And so he was in the movement of H to H, human to human
mm,
interaction over B2B, business to
yeah.
business, and he created this Barrett model that I'm going to show you very quickly, and you're going to see the colors again, but
Mm,
really
yeah.
differently. So it's a 7 level of consciousness,
Yes.
and I don't remember
Mm.
the spiral dynamic. How many? One, two, three, four, five, six,
Nine, up
seven.
to nine so far.
Yeah, the first tier. This is because they have a first tier which is
Yes.
7, and the second tier with 3. It's
Yes.
9. So I love numbers. I don't know about you, but me, I'm crazy about numbers. But
Well,
I
they are expecting that there will be more
yeah, of
ultimately, but
course.
for now, no one has evolved to that far.
But what he's proposing, and right now I thought they changed the website a little bit. I was not prepared. It was here it is. Okay, you see it now on screen.
Yeah.
It's the explore the Barrett model. So of course they do kind of, instead of a spiral in their case, they do uh, a bottom up pyramid
Mm,
on top of consciousness,
yeah.
and a top down pyramid, which is the Maslow pyramid. If you look at it, it's
Yeah.
viability,
Mm,
relationship, performance. It's ensuring stability and stuff. And then the green part, evolution. Now they call it evolution. That's funny because
mm,
it was transformation a couple of months
uh-huh.
ago, and
Mm,
they changed transform, because when you're at number 4 in the Barrett scale, it's where you are pivoting yourself or your organization.
yes.
And then you
Mm,
have the alignment that comes after the invitation and agreement, and then you have collaboration, contribution, so on. So it's very interesting
mm,
because it's me. I like again to have diversity of
mm,
things, and to maybe, like, when we work with client, what will be the story they want to hear. And we were joking
mm,
about safe and DA before, but at the end of the day, if some clients, they want that story and they think it's good and people agreed, as a coach we have to be agnostic, right? And we said, okay, but maybe I'm not the
mm,
one
yeah.
to help you because I don't have this intuition. For me, it's love. I don't love that
Ah,
framework that you're going to
mm,
impose to your
mm,
people. I prefer to work with Isabelle on spiral dynamic, on Lelou's proposition, on Daniel
yeah.
Mezik's proposition, on inviting base change and
Mm,
stuff like this. So what do you think about this? Because what's next for me, also about what should I call it, like, because I'm writing a book right now of next level agility. That's the name for now, but
mm,
it will
yeah.
change. And for me, the next level movement embrace this go beyond thing and continuously evolve. It's not static. So we might,
Mm,
you and I, discover this morning the spiral dynamics, and put a bit of the Barrett model to help individual grow into this spiral. But we
mm,
might uncover, because if we have an open mind and we praise diversity, maybe even over inclusivity, because inclusivity for me, yes, we have to create those space, but at the same time, if you're not introvert, you should need less help to find your place. Don't know.
I don't know about that because introverts have a very fertile thought process.
Mhm.
And for me, I'm an introvert, so maybe I'm speaking for myself. Um,
But
but
it's
we are with our thoughts all the time. So at some point in time, when you are struggling with your thoughts, you're going to seek for some help to deal with the thoughts and to become a bit more intentional with your thinking. So it's called the metacognition.
yeah,
And it's all the new cognitive and behavioral therapies. These kind of things are very helpful in this sense. I think spirituality maybe at some point in time. I tried that. It's not for my type. I prefer something a bit more rational. So I went to this kind of things. Same, the coaching certification I took was very much in line with that. And it's really tremendously helping me creating the self-awareness for me and for others, because when I coach, I coach on that. So I'm trying to help people think about their thoughts, basically, and try to see if it's really helpful. Is it in line with our purpose? How can we change this way of thinking
Mm-hmm.
to make things happen?
But then again, how do we measure that you and I are introvert or extrovert? You mentioned that I'm an introvert, but you are coaching group. Probably you're in front of group.
Mhm.
You are
Yes.
with me right now on this
Mhm.
podcast, even video.
Yeah.
So, and apparently, according to a test I did, I'm also an introvert. Could you believe it?
Yeah. So
So,
for me,
yeah,
the definition of introvert is more like I need to recharge alone. So it doesn't prevent me to be with a lot of people. And indeed, people don't believe me when I say I'm an introvert, because I like to be interacting with groups. I can teach to groups of 30, 20 people. It's fine. Uh, but at the end of the day, I need to be by myself, read a good book, something like that to recharge.
thank
That's my
you.
definition of introverts.
Thank you. I like it because me too. I'm an introvert, and
Mm.
people don't believe me because I'm always like, screaming
Yeah,
online and
but
stuff.
yeah,
But
the thing is, people are very confused between people being shy and people being introvert, and it's completely different.
exactly. But I
Yeah.
remember my dear colleague Michael Orman that I have at that microphone here, the creator of Inviting Agility. He told me once we had that kind of conversation about creating an open space and how do we make sure that, and that was the correction he did too. He said like, no, 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 hold on. It's those who ask the question about introvert and extrovert are the extrovert.
Yeah, but potentially yes.
Well, actually, yes, because the introvert they don't mind
uh,
because they are focused on what they need. They will
yeah,
need to recharge, and they are not necessarily shy people. There's a
no.
they apparently there's more extrovert people who are shy
Hmm.
than introvert because
Yeah, that's possible.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, they need all this fluffla to,
Yeah.
let's have a beer tonight. Let's
Hmm.
anyways.
Yeah.
So and probably there's also in a spiral dynamic. It's not exactly, in the box. We might
No,
have
it's
space and
something else
environment
for
that
me. Yeah,
hmm?
yeah. Mm,
You what?
yeah.
What did you
I
say?
think it's completely different. I don't see introvert, extrovert being in the pyramid.
No, huh?
For me, it's something else. Yeah.
Yeah, it's something else. And so when you said about like this new behavioral therapy and cognitive, like the cognitive thing, and now with what we went
Mm,
through and we are still going through, but with some other element, like they changed the theater, they changed the space. Now it's
mhm,
from a pandemic to a risk of a world war. And so all the masses
mm,
reacting according to individual. And when I was saying before we jump into the live stream, at a great dinner yesterday, and because we don't watch news, we're more happy and smiling and
mm,
but doesn't mean that we are not empathetical for those who are unfortunately live through these because it's probably far away we are and if we don't but again this kind of mind and cognitive and how do we adapt our brain and our consciousness about
mm,
what's going on. It's one thing to have empathy, I will say, but if we destroy these lives are already being destroyed because of megalomaniac from each
mm,
side, by the way, because I try to be agnostic here, and I don't want to name any government here, but I think people will understand what we are talking. So for me, when the pandemic hit 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago now, I was very stunned to not see any of my colleagues try to do something, and I did. My team and I, we put in place on YouTube with Zoom what I call a checked in solidaire. It was Franglish, checked in
nice. Hmm.
solidaire with all people around the world, with my client, with my coworker and stuff. And every night from March 13, 2020, the first week
Mm,
we did it every night, and people were coming on the Zoom
mm,
session, exchanging,
mm,
because I think it's one of our duty to. You talk about safe space, but what about okay, so we lose something. We are all in it together. So, but let's share
mm,
it. What is your story? And I was pleased to have people from France, England,
mm.
Mexico, Mexico, Canada, and we discovered that it was the same message, but not the same way that we're
Yeah.
applying was going
Mm.
on, and people could share and could so this binding thing, and to avoid this what they call the cognitive dissonance or
Mm.
something like this. So. And I know right now what I'm seeing when I'm at the airport, it's all of this neuro coaching. So, coach, what is neuro coaching? Because I would like maybe to have a reflection.
Mm.
I think about
I,
this new buzzword,
I
maybe.
don't do neurocoaching, but I'm very interested in neuroscience.
Okay,
So
so but
maybe
that's what
this
they
is,
do. They try to bring neuroscience into
mm,
us for a new
yeah,
certification to enable us coaches
yeah.
with the qualificative if you want agile business, whatever.
Yeah,
To
I think I would rather go with a certification about coaching on the systems than neuroscience coaching, but that's a separate topic. So
yeah.
neuroscience, what I like to do is to use neuroscience as knowledge that we can use to understand ourselves. So that's also part of I was talking about the cognitive behavioral therapy. Neuroscience is another tool for me as part of my toolbox to understand ourselves better. So it's more a tool for awareness, to help people understand how the brain works according to the current knowledge of science.
Mhm.
We've made a lot of progress, but we still don't know everything yet. So there is also some humility to have, I think, with this kind of tools that we know. For now, we know about how the brain is supposed to work. So we
Mhm.
can use that as some knowledge to improve as humans and stay open for the rest.
One of my issue with that all shebang thing and bringing it into business and the world of work and the
Mm.
management of people again instead of empowerment of people.
Hmm.
It's you talk about simplicity. Jim Smith, one of the co-signatory,
Mm.
4 years after the manifesto, he came out with a paper saying like, you'd like to be agile, you'd like to adopt these new ways and helping people uncovering new way.
Mm.
Keep it simple,
Yeah,
not fast,
it is.
not
That's right.
adaptative.
Mm.
Keep it simple, clear. And in my dinner yesterday, again, they were saying like, what's in it for me as a CTO, as a CISO?
Mm.
I don't want to
Maybe
create
I can give an example of
this
how.
therapeutic group
Yeah.
because we are in business to make money.
Mm.
I don't mind to put people first because that's what you teach us, Alex, with business
Mm.
agility.
Yeah.
And I'm open to kind of conscious leadership, but this is the red line I don't want to cross. I don't
Mm.
want psychotherapists. I want a coach who understands
Yeah.
business, who will
Mm.
help us hearing and listening to our customer first to please them better. And also
Yeah.
my worker to make sure that they are in an environment they love, they could remote work and everything. So don't bring me this.
Mhm.
I, when I
Mm.
said like at Agile Lounge, we praise the tagline of bringing back science and sports into coaching, Scrum, and agility. Yeah,
Mm.
science with a big S,
Yeah.
but not psychology. Because
Mm.
even as a coach, there was this great guy from Sweden. And I use it when I told you I do an agreement with my coachee, especially an organization. I said I am not,
Mm.
I will, and I need yours. Like these. I don't have it with me,
Mm.
but so I am not your leader. I am not
Mhm.
a psychotherapist. I put it there.
Yeah.
And people, and I took it from I think John Jorgensen took it from the ICF at some point because it's coaching
Mhm.
at large, not just
Yeah.
for agile.
Mhm.
And we have to make these boundaries that
Yeah.
as a coach, I'm
Mm.
not your leader and I'm not
Mm.
here to on your,
Yeah.
individual coaching. We could have a coaching agreement where but
Mm.
at the end of the day, sometimes the coach, the way we are,
Mm.
yes, we are kind of psychologists, but I had a training last year or 2 years ago in San Francisco with a psychologist, with other
Mhm.
coaches, telling us we are not here to evaluate, assess the
Mm.
behavior or the cognitive dissonance of any of our
Mm.
stakeholders. And now when I see that movement, for so far, the paper I read
Mm.
from some of our fellow agile coach, they want to start doing this. And let me tell you, I don't know in France, but here in the United States and Canada, the psychological order or medicine, they will like chop their head. We
mm,
we are not professional enough to start playing with the brain and the behavior
mm,
of the people. We don't know their trauma. We just on board, and one of my clients in Manitoba, we welcome Ukrainian people right from
mm,
what's happening right now. Do you think it's
mm.
time to put them into neuro coaching?
No, no, no.
So I think it's a red line, as
Mm,
my client says
mm,
yesterday in lunch.
yeah,
I don't want to go there. I swear,
mm,
Alex, if you start with this neural
mm,
stuff at my organization, I kick you out.
no. This is
It's
not where,
either
yeah.
because to change, or it's again that story and being agnostic and empathic as a coach.
Mm,
And now I think that these people are just want to create a longer term. For sure, for you, understand that you're not a consultant, but for us consultants, sometimes we have this tendency of, oh,
mm,
that's will be only a 3-week contract. So how could I extend it? Oh, yeah, that's me bad.
mm,
I'm being frank here. I'm there, real
mm,
agile. I mean, I know a lot of people don't want to hear that because I'm putting my hand in their pockets. That's what they told me in private message. But it's not about the money. It's about the elevation of your worker and the
mm,
satisfaction of the customer.
yeah,
I could
mm,
do in 2 weeks what some other firm will do in 5, 6 months
mm,
because they complicated the thing. It's not
mm,
complex, but they put it complicated.
yeah.
What do you think?
So yeah, I wouldn't go into neuro coaching per se, but I think some knowledge are interesting to share, and then
Mhm.
people do what they want with it. So it's more like I'm teaching you that. I'm not going to use that in coaching unless someone people to, but indeed, I am not trained into that, so I'm not going to use that.
Yeah.
However, some knowledge is commonly shared and agreed. So for example, it's fair to say that we know that the brain has some default um, thought patterns because it wants to keep us safe. So the primary function of the brain is to keep us safe. And because of that, we can have limiting beliefs
Yes.
that can trigger us at work and then that can prevent us or hurt us or limit us
But
when we are in an agile setup. So it's just about giving this piece of information to people so that they can maybe think, okay, maybe there is something that I can think about here and use it as an information. What do you
yeah,
say?
but my other
Mhm,
issue is, and probably it goes because of the social media algorithm or something, I don't
mm,
know, but I was not the only one. So why is the buzz happening? Why is people, it's like in the news cycle. We talked
mm,
about pandemic for about, and then oops, this is this, and then this is this. It's like we'd like to brainwash people to have a focal on only one ideology, one idea, whether it's political, economical, even in our community of agile. I mean, when I see conference after conference, now I was invited for enterprise agility conference in November,
mm,
neuroscience. Scrum Alliance in Lisbon next week,
mm,
neuroscience. Could we have diversity a little bit? I don't mind that. Me, I'm really open, and I read a couple of things. And when people put a blog on neuroscience, I search. Like when with you, Spiral Dynamics, I went back to my physics book because they put. I mean, yes, I embrace it. I invite it. I hope people are
mm,
open minded. But when we talk about keep it simple, doing
mm,
something empirical, could we exercise it? And this is
mm,
I hope you were there yesterday night at dinner because these guys are very like high potential, leader. They are not manager anymore, and
mm,
they love their company, they love their product, they love their employees, they love their clients, and they said like, man, come
mm,
on, we want to invest
mm. Yeah.
because this is for us. It's like the luxury of the first world. And by the way, they are implementing a
Mm,
development team in South America, and they love to give an almost equivalent salary in pesos that they do in US dollars. Could you imagine that? So that's the level of consciousness they are. So they
mm,
don't, they say to me like, we hope as our coach you won't going that track because we have a psychologist and people care because they
mm,
call their human resource people care, and we have a psychologist already who help us with marketing, with
mm,
everything. So you're an agile coach for both our technical team and our business agility. And the course I had with the psychologist. She tell us you could have as a coach some tool to understand the neurodynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's it. Yeah.
but I will ask you to make sure to be in contact with someone in HR.
Mm,
You have someone as an individual coaching or even in a group coaching, and you could identify an issue with a
mm,
leader, because
yeah.
she shows that this triad, this dark triad of any leader,
Mm,
or I should say, a manager who's not a leader yet. The Machiavellic is at the base. You
mm,
have
yeah.
psychopathy. That's the only thing in the DSM, and this narcissistic behavior. So
Mm,
sometimes, as coach, I don't know for you, but me, I stumbled upon key stakeholders or workers that were like in pain, and they come to you, the agile coach, to talk about it. But our role is to help them go seeking the right internal to the company
mm,
help, or
yeah.
even sometimes this is beyond what I can do as a coach. I'm not
Yes.
a psychotherapist,
Mm,
and what I'm
yeah.
worried about this from that training to help us, having a better interaction is
Mm,
so neuroscience is one thing. Now, if psychology, they don't all agree in psychology to apply it anyways.
mm,
So that's another thing. Empirically, I know I spoke with a psychologist. My mom was a psychologist, and
mm,
she was saying, like, no, no, don't mechanize the spirit.
mm,
That's what my mom told her student at Montreal University. Don't mechanize our mind process, our spirit, that it's the essence of our consciousness, maybe. And what is consciousness? So I love novelty. I'm always an early adopter, but now when it's push, when it's buzz like this, like the reskilling from the World Economic Forum. So all of a sudden, we need reskilling. Yeah, why? You should
mm,
have think about it before. Because since 1993, I'm telling that we should have apprenticeship. There's no apprenticeship anywhere.
okay. Mm.
Anyway, I'm disgracing right now, and you have to stop me, Isabelle.
That is very interesting.
I'm just thinking out loud right now
Mm,
with you because you're
mm,
inspiring too. And so
mm.
what's next for agile leadership? What we should do next as a
Um,
collective coach?
yeah, well, keep exploring. I think this is what I will say is keep learning, keep exploring, keep experimenting. I think putting ourselves in action, trying new things is very important. So in the end, this thinking around the spiral dynamic is very interesting, but what really matters is the interaction you have with your teams on a daily basis and how you can all together reach your goal, reach your purpose. So be clear with them what it's about. Purpose driven, I think, is one very good key for me
I
to
love it.
lead
Purpose
with
driven.
agile. Yeah, purpose driven, exactly. And then the development, I think, also comes with interacting with teams. So being open to be wrong, being open to new ideas, being inclusive, try to get rid of judgment. That's tough, but
And
that's
one thing I
something that
share,
really makes you evolve.
yes, and I think also ask for help.
Yes.
You're doing
Yeah.
enough. You are enough. Ask for help. That's okay to ask for help. We don't know everything. And if we're in the same team, sometimes I will go to you, Isabelle. Could you help me about this? Because I don't understand. Like actually, if it was not a show about neuroscience, I seems with my post that I did this morning, and now like
Mm,
I'm resisting to change. But this is a persona I'd like to do just to spark the mind of people. But I think ask for help. It's also an
mm.
important dynamic.
Even coaches have coaches.
Yes, I still have a coach after 20 some
It's
years.
important. Yeah,
It's,
me too.
it's more becoming a mentor because that's the thing.
Mm,
A coach
yeah.
could be someone that we don't know that much. It's a kind of a
Mm,
transactional interaction, but we have also the what you might call it,
yeah.
the mentor who's could be a friend, also a dear colleague. So I thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure.
I know you're lucky. It's always the weekend for you. Me, I've got a whole
Yeah.
day to go again, and so thank you very much. And I hope you'll come back because I might do a roundtable about the words and semantic,
Ah, nice.
the power of words
Okay.
and the energy Oh, and remember, as I always say at my audience when I close the show, you are a wonderful person. You are a beautiful person. You are free to be whoever you want it to be and to do whatever you wanted to do in mutual respect of one another. Thank you.